Redemption Road by Elma Shaw. Chapter 1. As people paid their last respect to Catherine May Tyler Lewis, they were either reverently silent or they broke down and cried. Some reached to the heavens and, oblivious of everyone around them, talked to Catherine loudly. For Bendu Lewis, Catherine's granddaughter, the pain was magnified, for she was the last to see Granny May alive. It was she who had watched her die an undignified death, emaciated legs and arms dangling over the side of a dirty, rusty wheelbarrow. Hundreds of friends and relatives had come now to celebrate the old lady's life and mourn her death. Their emotions were raw and intense, even though she had died almost 10 years earlier. Although the remains of Catherine Lewis had never been found, the family had decided to use the casket anyway and had placed it in a large portrait of their matriarch along with a few things that reflected what she loved most: her Bible, a collage of family pictures, a framed picture of her husband, Samuel Lewis II, who had died long before the war, a single white rose, and the red, white, and blue flag of Liberia. Bendu watched her father, Benjamin Lewis, move steadily among the crowd, comforting friends and relatives with words here, a touch there, a reassuring smile, or a story to remind them of his mother's generosity and sense of humor. Bendu's mother, Eve, was there too, sitting with old cousin Rebecca, and they were glancing over at Bendu every now and then with what seemed like disapproval in their eyes. Ben and Eva Lewis left Liberia in the early 1990s, not long after Charles Taylor escaped from an American prison and entered Liberia on a mission to unseat President Samuel K. Doe. Now, after 9 years of functional fighting and mission long ago accomplished, Taylor was president of Liberia. Disgusted with the election that gave him power, Ben and Eva had only returned from the States for the memorial service. All their property had been destroyed during the Civil War, and they were staying with Siata, Bendu's older sister, and her husband, Terence Clark. Siata had left the US and returned to Terence a few months before the memorial. Despite sporadic rebel attack, she had decided to stay in Liberia for good. Now that Terence was part of the elected government and there was relative peace, Ben and Eva had no plans to stay for good. Undone first by the 1980 coup d'etat, in which they lost political power and their only son, then the Civil War a decade later, they felt Liberia now was just too different from the one they had enjoyed. They were unwilling to aid the country's development and often joked that their daughter Bendu was their great contribution. None of them will ever understand my pain, Bendu thought, looking around and finding herself for relief from the heat that will only be mitigated by the next rainfall. She slowly tuned out what the people around her were saying and fixed her eyes on the shiny satin-lined casket at the other end of the room. Then she heard the voices. "You girl, leave the old woman and run." Oh, the voices! Bendu could not forget the voices, mingled with screams, as the whole population of Chalu town and surrounding villages ran for their lives. People at the memorial service swirled around her in a hazy sea of black, purple, and white, the standard mourning colors, and their sounds soon merged with the sounds in her head. That day, as they ran, with Bendu pushing her sick grandmother in a wheelbarrow, a matronly woman grabbed her by the shoulders and shook her. "Old ma's time is finished. She's old. You are young. Let's go." The sound of the machine guns was getting louder, and they heard screaming in the distance behind them. Screams were almost drowned out though by the piercing wails of several abandoned babies and small children by the roadside. Their parents or guardians were either unable or unwilling to carry them any further, or had simply lost them in the confusion. A few of the children ran scared among the crowd, stretching out their arms and crying in vain to be picked up. They ran, but their little legs couldn't get them far, and Bendu gasped in horror as she saw a couple of them trampled by the frightened adult. She will remember the terror of their little faces forever. She wanted to gather up some of the babies and put them in the wheelbarrow with Granny May, but she knew that would only slow them down. All around, Bendu saw that several elderly and sick people had also been left behind. A few struggled to follow the crowd. Others made no attempt and sat crying, calling out to the able-bodied running past them. Hey, my daughter! Hey, my son! Help me, oh! Help me! I beg you! Still, others sat silently and stared blankly as they waited their fate. Bendu gripped the wheelbarrow handles more firmly and pushed ahead. Granny May had weighted to about 90 pounds, but Bendu had lost weight herself and strength too, so it was not easy. Her jeans sagged on her a bit, and she wished she had worn a lapel instead. The large piece of fabric would have been a better fit wrapped tightly around her waist, and would have helped her blend in with the other more traditionally dressed women. She could also have used it as a blanket for Granny May, or as a hair tie to wrap up her own conspicuously long hair. It was so important not to stand out among the crowd. Anything remarkable made it too easy to be pulled out of the crowd at the checkpoints that were being set up along the major roads. She thanked God now that she was dark skinned. Her complexion helped her to blend in with the other people around her. Suddenly, a shrill whistling sound pierced the sky behind the fleeing crowd. For a few seconds, they slowed down as they tried to figure out what invincible aircraft was flying their way. The whistling stopped abruptly, and the gigantic explosion that followed stunned them. A rocket-propelled grenade had landed in the village they had just abandoned. Dizzy, slow motion, confusion, then utter bedlam as people regained their hearing and began to run even faster. Bendu too panicked and found some energy to run for a bit. One more person shouted at her as she ran past. Leave that wheelbarrow, you girl. Your grandma is looking dead already. Just leave her. But Bendu ran and pushed until two of the painful blisters in her hand burst and her weary legs crumpled beneath her. She fell to her knees, panting, out of breath, a sharp stabbing pain in her right side. She rested her head on the wheelbarrow and tried to catch her breath as the last of the villagers rushed by. Granny May! Don't worry, Granny May. We will get out of here together. I promise you. She assured the old lady, with the crowd and their noise now gone ahead. Bendu finally heard her grandmother hoarse whisper, Leave me, baby. Go. Save yourself. Bendu scooped her grandmother up tenderly and held her in her arms. No, Granny May. No, I will never leave you. Granny May's skin was hot and dry, and she smelled of the Vicks ointment that she rubbed on her chest to ward off coughs and colds. Granny May whispered again, this time more faintly, Go, baby. My Lord will take care of me. He will take care of you too. With those words, her body went limp, and Bendu stumbled as she placed her grandmother back in the wheelbarrow. Granny May's thin eyelids closed, and a rasping sound came out of her throat. Granny May! The old man was silent and still. Granny May! Bendu shook her gently. A thin old man rose up from the grass on the roadside and limped over to look at them. Nama, fine girl, he said. Sorry, yeah. You did well to stay with your ma. God bless you. Bendu stared at the old man for a few seconds, then shook her head slowly as she began to understand what he was saying. She stumbled backwards, eyes still on him, searching his wrinkled face. No, she whispered. No. The man simply lowered his head sadly before he turned and walked away. Bendu scrambled to her feet, pushed the wheelbarrow to the side of the road, collapsed beside it, and wept bitterly until her eyes were swollen and her jaws hurt. She was crying so hard she didn't see the fighters until they were standing right in front of her. The leaders wore army fatigue and berets. Most of the others with them were a ragtag bunch, but all of them had weapons, and some of the men were wearing wigs. They were obviously not from the armed forces of Liberia. There were about 30 people in all, including a few very young boys and several women. To everyone's great surprise, Bendu looked right at them and sucked her teeth loudly. A man with wild dreadlocks stepped forward with a skull on his face, raised the handle of his gun, and was about to bring it down full force on her head when his commander grabbed his arm and stopped him. Bendu hadn't even flinched. She didn't care anymore. She was tired of the war, tired of running, and wanted to die herself, right there with Granny May. She wished someone would just shoot her and end the pain. A bullet would send her to heaven, where she would get to see her beloved fiancé, Joda, once more. The commander was a tall, muscular man with a mustache and 70s style sideburns. Stand up, he ordered in the dialect that most people in the region spoke. Bendu rose to her feet slowly. Her legs and arms were sore from pushing Granny May in a wheelbarrow for miles. Still speaking in the dialect, the man in charge introduced himself. I am Commander Cobra. Who are you? He asked. My name is Bendu, she replied. Bendu what? Bendu Lewis. Mama's in the crowd. She's a Congo girl, someone said. Listen to her voice. She's Americo-Liberian. How come you know my dialect? The commander asked. Bendu decided now to say that her fiancé spoke it and taught her a little before he died. I took classes at the University of Liberia. Commander Cobra nodded, obviously impressed. You speak it well. She sucked her teeth at us. The younger man with the gun interrupted. Let me strike for you, Cobra. Don't worry, Samson, the commander said, eyes still on Bendu and speaking English now. I will strike for myself. Samson stepped back and grinned at the thought. What were you doing in Town? The commander asked Bendu. My grandmother and I were visiting relatives in Somerville when the big bridge was destroyed. We couldn't get back to Morovia. One of the boys looked over at the old woman in the wheelbarrow and asked, Your old man sleeping or what? The woman standing next to him stacked her teeth and knocked him on the head with the back of her hand. The old man's dead, and you're asking if she's sleeping? A few of the fighters snickered. So, where are you carrying the body? The commander asked Bendu. His question drew more laughter. Bendu choked on a pin and couldn't answer. Fall in line. You're coming with us, he ordered. Bendu stood behind the wheelbarrow and picked up the handles with her bloody hands. It seemed like everyone started shouting and laughing at her at once. Where are you carrying that dead body? No more where we are going, no. Put the damn wheelbarrow down. Look at all these bodies lying around. This is your old man's graveyard right here. Bendu collapsed on top of her grandmother and let out an anguished cry. Two men grabbed her and tried to pull her off. I am staying here. I don't care what you say. I am staying here. The commander turned around from Bendu, motioned to some of the men, and led them forward along the road. He turned back to Samson and the others, and, tossing his head in Bendu's direction, ordered them to put an end to the nonsense and bring her quickly. One of the young women moved forward and tried to console the distressed girl, but before she could say anything, Samson raised his gun again and brought it down hard on Bendu's finger with a sickening crack. She let go of the wheelbarrow, and the men were able to drag her away screaming in agony. She soon fell unconscious from the pain, the hunger, the shock of what had happened to Granny May, and of what was happening to her. When she finally woke up, it was dark, and the fighters were quietly setting up camp in the woods. Someone put a comforting hand on her shoulder, and Bendu was startled out of her thoughts. She blinked and looked around her now, at her family, and at the friends who had come to Granny May's memorial service to sympathize with her. There was Agnes, a colleague from the Peace Education Center, several of their students, including Tene, who had been hospitalized with malaria all week and was supposed to still be in bed recovering, and Calvin Daniels, a childhood friend. Bendu was grateful for their presence, but in a way, she just wanted to be left alone. Although they did give her some sort of support, the fact that she could never tell them everything actually made her grief more unbearable. the pain more intense. What if they found out what had happened to, or what she had done? Would they understand? Would her family forgive her? Sometimes it all seems so far away. The nightmare, that was the war. But sometimes the memories were so sharp they left her debilitated. A year with the fighters had changed her life forever, and she couldn't understand how so many war survivors could say so easily, forget it and let it go, or let bygones be bygones. For Bendu, forgetting was not a question, but remembering and doing nothing about it was even worse.